Hello, friends. Hello, my friends. Welcome to this live. I'm going to give a few seconds for people to show up and join us for this live. Let's see if some of our friends are around and they can join us. That would be fun. All right, so if you're watching the replay, we're waiting a few minutes for people to hop on. I am actually live on TikTok doing this live HD reading. Now, I did have some issues getting someone on with me to do their chart last go around when I did my reflector reading. So likely for my manifesting generator reading, which is going to be next Wednesday, I'm actually going to be live on Instagram. So if you are on TikTok and you do not follow me on Instagram, my Instagram is linked up. Go ahead and follow me over there so that you can be notified when I go live with the manifesting generator who will be joining us next week. This is also someone I have done their foundational reading for, and she was very excited to get on live and talk about her chart and her experience of being a manifesting generator. So today we're going to be talking about a projector chart, and we're actually going to be talking about my own projector chart. It was a little short notice for me to find someone who was a projector who could also make this time. So I decided I was just going to go ahead and talk about my own chart. And that would be helpful for you if you're looking for a human design mentor. It's helpful to understand who they are, what their strengths are, what they bring to the table. I know a lot of generators in particular love to learn from non-sacral beings, and in particular projectors. Generators are really drawn to projectors. I think there's really good chemistry there in general between those two aura types, but sometimes it's helpful to understand the view or the lens that your human design guide is coming from so that you can decide whether or not you want to work with them or you feel inspired to work with them. So, still waiting on some hop-ons. In like a few seconds, I'm actually going to have some water because I just realized I'm extremely thirsty, and then I will go right in. Okay, so a couple of announcements before I dive into today's reading. Just as a reminder, the Sovereign Sessions, which is my Manifestation by Design course, is open for enrollment right now. That course starts July 18th. So once you enroll, you're going into the Sovereign Social, which is my free community. You all are welcome to join me in the Sovereign Social. It's private. You just have to request to join. But inside of there, there's actually a section for a private group inside of that group where all the students of the Sovereign Sessions are. My first round of students are in there still, and they are going to be joining us for round 2. Once you have this course or this program, you can revisit it as many times as you want. It's yours pretty much forever. And so they will be joining us and offering support in that private community. So once you join, you will be put in there, and then obviously you'll be notified as the events go up for when our live classes are. And I also received my shipment of the Magician's Manual. Hi! Hello, Beth. I just received my box of the 10 manuals that I am going to be sending out to the first 10 students who enroll in the Sovereign Sessions for the July session. So this is my manifestation journal. I designed and created this journal and published it. It is beautiful. It has an amazing daily check-in. It has a 5-minute journaling protocol for every single day. I use this journal myself because it is that wonderful and that effective at helping you get clear. I'm a huge fan of it. So I'm going to be sending these out as gifts. You can also purchase them if you just want to buy them one-off. They are also in my link and they are on Amazon. So just that. And then I do want to mention for some free resources, if you're new and you're just beginning your journey with human design, I have a community called the Sovereign Social, thesovereignsocial.com. and you can request to join. It's going to ask you a couple of questions, and then once you're in there and you get access to everything that's in there. I also, inside of the Sovereign Social, you'll see circles. There is one that is monthly for transits. I do human design transits pretty much every single week for all the planets and give you some insights, some journaling questions. I also do tarot events on new moons and full moons in there. And then I also have my Aura Basics courses under the course tab. So if you're brand new, you know your aura type, but you know nothing about your aura type, Aura Basics is where you would start. I have them for all 4 types, and they're $37. They're super affordable, and it's great information. And when you purchase that mini course, you're automatically in a community with other people with your aura type. So you get to build community in there, which is really nice. And then if you go into my bio link, there's also a free downloadable that you can get that gives you all this information about how to be in alignment according to your aura type. It's really amazing. And what was I going to say? Anything else that I'm forgetting that you guys might be interested in? That's pretty much it as far as like resources that I can think of right now. So let's dive into projector design. Thank you for all the hearts. They're so awesome. So here is my own chart right here. And one thing you'll notice that is different than last week when we did the reflector chart is that there's actually color on this chart. Last week when we did the reflector chart, everything was white. This week when we're looking at my chart, there's actually some coloring. Not very much. I only have 3 centers defined and the rest of me is pretty undefined. But there is some color. So that's what denotes immediately a difference between a reflector and everybody else's chart, is that they have no color, the other charts do to some degree, whether it's just one center or all of them. So being a projector is very similar to being a reflector in the sense that they're both considered non-energy types, okay? You'll notice that I have this sacral square is undefined. There's no color there. The sacral is the center in the body graph that gives you life force energy, that gives you work energy, that gives you vitality. Okay, and so when you have a chart that doesn't have a sacral colored in, then you have a design that requires more rest and restoration than the other designs automatically. Now, the tricky component to this, and something that happens with projectors a lot, projectors are very gifted in their capacity to amplify the energy of those around them. And we're very good at doing that with the sacral. We're very good at plugging into generator sacrals. Generators are 70% of the population, okay? Projectors are about 20. So we're very good at running into sacrals around us, plugging in and absorbing that energy and believing that because we are amplifying their energy, it is our own energy and that we are superhuman. The projector, when it is absorbing the generator energy of a generator, is like unstoppable. They're almost superhuman. They're massive multitaskers. They're all over the place doing all the things. They just appear to have all of the energy. They oftentimes appear very different than their design. That is a matter of conditioning, and that was my story. For the first 30 years of my life, I behaved nothing like a projector. I was like, go, 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 super mom, businesswoman, doing all the things. And then I hit burnout very early, which is another very typical thing about the projector design. Projectors tend to burn out in their 30s, whereas every other design usually lasts into their 40s or their 50s. Not a projector. Projector living off chart, living out of alignment, will quickly hit burnout, which I did at 31, and it landed me in the hospital like 10 times in a row. And it was one mystery illness after another, and they couldn't freaking figure out what was going on. And it took me and a lot of downtime to figure out that I had extreme burnout. And because I had extreme burnout, I was manifesting all of these illnesses pretty much back to back, which were keeping me like out for the count. Okay. So as a projector, if you are watching this and you are a projector, or you're sharing this with someone who's a projector so that they can watch this, and you're like, I don't resonate with my projector design. I don't need a lot of rest. I don't need whatever. I'm here to tell you, I thought the same thing. And it wasn't until I started forcing myself to rest. I mean, like, you're going to take a nap now, whether you want to or not. You're just going to lay down in the middle of the day for 15 minutes and not do anything. Not look at your phone, don't do anything. Just lay there. When I started doing that and I started meditating more regularly is when my nervous system finally started to get regulated. A lot of projectors have extremely dysregulated nervous systems because, again, they've been living off chart, likely conditioned by their parents who are generators often, or people close to them who are. And when my nervous system started to get regulated, I started realizing how much I actually craved rest, how much rest felt so good for my body. And when I was doing restful things like getting a massage or meditating or sleeping or just going for a walk in nature and not being plugged into technology or anything, is when my greatest ideas would show up. Or I would sell out a bunch of courses or a bunch of product, right? Like, our abundance as projectors is intimately tied to our ability to rest and regulate the nervous system. And if we're not rested and we are not working on our worth, honoring our worth, it can be a very difficult life for a projector. What makes it challenging is the fact that our strategy and our authority, so strategy meaning how you play the game of life, that's how I refer to strategy, and authority meaning how we make decisions. Everybody has a strategy and authority. Last week we talked about the reflector strategy and authority being the same, which is tracking lunar cycles. For a projector that changes, the strategy is to wait to be invited or to wait to be recognized. It's very challenging in today's world. Today's world where everything is like, go do the thing, initiate, reach out, do it, da-da-da-da. To wait to be recognized by the other is very difficult for a projector. Most projectors want to be seen because they're designed to be seen. Projectors are the guides of society. They are the coaches, the counselors. They are literally the guides. They are the archetype of guide. And because they are meant to be seen, oh, thank you for the presents. Because they are meant to be seen, they deeply want that recognition. And so for a lot of their lives, starting for when they're children, they are hungry for that recognition. And so they're constantly doing things to be seen, to be seen, to be seen. Does this resonate with any projector who's on live right now? I'm raising 2 projector children, and my son who is 6 is all about the watch me, watch me, watch me, watch me, watch me. Look at this. Look, I'm so good at this. Aren't I so good at this? Like, aren't you proud of me? He's constantly, he also has the gate 10. So that's another thing, but he's constantly looking for that recognition, right? And one thing I'm working on is teaching him that when someone recognizes you, then your own recognition is magnified. So for myself as a small business owner, the way that I run a business is very different than a generator, very different than a manifestor, very different than a reflector. For myself as a small business owner, I'm supposed to be working on the things that inspire me, studying, learning, honing my craft, getting really masterful at what inspires me and what moves me. And then showing up on a platform like this one and delivering my inspiration and delivering the things that move me. Then having you watch the things that I am delivering. And then when you resonate with my work, when you recognize me, when you recognize that connection, reaching out to me and saying, hey, can I have a reading? Or going to my site and booking a foundational reading, or joining one of my courses, or purchasing the manifestation journal that I created. So my whole job is to make myself seen by mastering something that I love, sharing the thing that I love, and allowing you to recognize and invite me to work with you. So if you're a projector, I really want you to hear this. This is so important. You need to be working on mastering something that you're passionate about, putting yourself out there and allowing the right people, because projectors are not designed to work with everyone. They have their people. Allowing the right people to see you, recognize you, reach out to you, connect with you, and build a relationship with you, okay? That is how we succeed. This is how we grow in the world. So a huge part of projector magic is actually waiting in stillness for recognition. So stillness practices are everything for this design, because you calm down the mind and you calm down the desire to be really seen by everybody. And you learn to honor your magic and the things that you're passionate about and to work at honing those skills. And then when you show up and you show up in your magic, the people around you who see that magic, resonate with that magic, click into that magic, their own authority lights up, then you can really show up for them and show up brilliantly to support them. But you're not here to support everybody. You're here to support your people. Remember that, okay? So hello, a lot of you are joining. Welcome, especially if you're a projector and you're here to learn about your design. Welcome, my projectors. Just saying it again, there's a ton of free resources on my link in bio. There's downloadables, there's a free community you can join. There's also Aura Basic courses that you can take with me as well. There's all that in there if you want to dive deeper. And yes, I do foundational readings. I also do advanced readings, and all that is there for you as well. So we've covered the projector aura, the magic of the projector aura, the strategy of waiting to be invited and recognized by the other. Authority is how we make decisions. Now, I don't cover authority in the lives usually because they're so varied and there's so many of them, but I will talk a little bit about my own authority. I imagine there's many splenics watching this, so you can be a splenic authority if you are any of the types. You can be a splenic authority. So if you are a splenic authority, this means that you are making decisions from the spleen, right here, which is the center of fear, but is also the center for intuition. Splenic authorities typically know in the moment. It's a very still, intuitive knowing in the moment, right away, when something is correct for them or not. The thing about splenic authority is that it's often very quiet. It's not loud like a response like a generator would get from their sacral. It's quiet, and it only really comes around like once. So this is the best way I can describe a splenic authority is like, this is the stuff that happens to me all the time. I'll be at the grocery store and I have my list and I'm grocery shopping. And I walk by the tomatoes, which are not on my list, and there's a still small voice in my head that goes, I should grab some tomatoes. But my knowing brain, my conscious, not intuitive brain is like, we don't need tomatoes. They're not on the list. Don't get the tomatoes. So then I just walk by the tomatoes. Then when I get home, I realize I don't have any tomatoes, and one of the recipes I'm working on needs tomatoes. That was my spleen attempting to communicate to me in the moment that I should pick up the tomatoes, but it's very quiet. So you can easily dismiss it as just being like a random thought or something that's not really of yours. Another example is if you're driving down the road and all of a sudden you usually make a left turn to go somewhere and your spleen tells you to go right, and you're like, why would I go right? I always go left. But it's telling you that to avoid something. And has that happened to any of you who are splenic authorities? Like, you're being told to go one way versus the other, then you realize later you got stuck in traffic or maybe something happened and you're like, shit, I should have gone the other way. This is the spleen. It's very quiet, it's very subtle, but it's very powerful. And it knows. So my decisions are very in the moment and instantaneous. Though there has been some times when my spleen has been very loud when my life was in danger or when a dangerous situation was happening. It did get loud, and it does get loud in those moments. But for the most part, it's a pretty still, intuitive voice, and you have to work at crafting hearing it. Otherwise, you miss it, okay? For all my splenics out there. So, covered my type, strategy, authority. Okay, let's talk about profile lines. Where are my 1-3s? Anybody 1-3 who's watching this right now? If you have your profile line is right here. Does anybody have the 1-3 profile, the investigator, martyr, or the resource explorer in quantum human design? Let me know. So profile lines, there's 6 lines, and this is directly related to the Chinese I Ching and the hexagrams, the symbols with lines that can be either interrupted or solid. And with the 6 lines, the 4, 5, and 6 are considered transpersonal lines. People with that profile line tend to have transpersonal destinies, like here really for the other and for experiences involving the other. Whereas 1, 2, and 3 are considered personal lines, and those people are more involved with their own journey and their own discovery. I happen to be a completely personal profile, 1-3. Both my numbers are very personal. And most profiles, I would say, are a combination of a personal number and a transpersonal number. So with the 1 being the investigator or the resource, people with a 1 in their profile. So if you have a 5-1, 4-1, whatever, if you have a 1 at all in your profile, then an element to your destiny, to your purpose on the planet, is that you are a researcher by heart. You are someone who dives deep and wants to understand deeply anything that they get involved with. These are often people who are, one certificate after another because they just want to learn all the things, the eternal student. And the desire to research and know comes from a place of wanting to feel secure. The 1 line is the foundation of the other hexagram lines. And so the 1 is the foundation. It needs to know, it needs to be secure in what it knows in order to build the other hexagram lines. That's the archetype of the 1. So naturally, the 1s are the people who are going to read the Amazon reviews before they buy the product. They're going to, make sure they've researched all the models of whatever appliance they want to make sure they're picking out the best one. Research is so important for 1 lines. It's also what makes them experts. They tend to be the experts in their field because they're so adamant about learning what they're passionate about. Okay. The 3 line are what I call the scientists of the profile lines because they learn through making mistakes. The wisdom of the 3 is that you become wise and you become an expert because of your experiences, because you've tried everything under the sun, you've failed a million times, and you've continued and you've found success through experimentation. And that experimentation gives you experiential wisdom, which is what you then transfer to the people that you work with. Okay? So a huge part of my wisdom that I bring into my containers, whether it's a course or mentorship or anything like that, is my own experience, a lot of mistakes, a lot of errors, a lot of what I would do differently, right? If I had to do it all over again type of thing. So if you're a 3 line, you have a 3 in your profile, you're the natural scientist. You don't make mistakes, you're just learning. You haven't failed, you're just experimenting. It's part of your work in the world. Okay. My incarnation cross, which again is made up of these 2, your design and personality, sun and earth, is right angle cross of Eden 4. So a big part of my work is a lot like my friend who I brought on last week as a reflector, is to bring Eden back to earth, to help people. I have on my design side the 6, which is about friction, and the 36, which is known as the gate of crisis. And on my personality side, I have the 11 and the 12, which is about ideas and channeling wisdom in the now. A lot of my work in the world is about helping people navigate points of friction and conflict in their life. It's about helping them not be afraid. What's interesting is before I really got into that, I have a tattoo on my arm. It's in Latin. And it says, "The obstacle is the way." That's what that tattoo says. And what's interesting is that that's exactly what I'm designed to help people understand. That friction and crisis are not things to run away from or to try to ignore, but they're actually invitations for you to rise up into your sovereignty. They are invitations for you to find the next level of your sovereignty. And so when I'm in my mentorship containers, that's a lot of what I bring into them, is demystifying the void, demystifying the not knowing or the obstacle or the problem, so to speak, and really giving you permission to see it as an initiation. That has to do with one of my channels. I have the channel of initiation. So that's the shamanic channel of transformation. So for me, it's about initiating you into that next level of your reality and not being afraid of that. And then the 11 being a gate of ideas and concepts, bringing you just a host of ideas of how you can traverse and navigate your life in order to build it the way that you want. And the 12 gives me access in the throat to this wisdom from the divine that just comes right through. It's the channeling. Often when you see the 12 in an undefined throat, that's a prophet, that's a channel, a true channel, someone who has that gift. And that's so accurate for, again, why I've done mediumship work and I've done psychic work for years before I knew anything about my design, because I was uniquely attuned to that. So that's my incarnation cross. That is my life purpose. That is my purpose and my work. And it's so true. It has been true no matter what career I've had in my life or what my area of focus has been in the moment. That has always been true. That's always been the point, is for me to help people traverse some form of crisis. I was a massage therapist for almost a decade, and I worked with people who had medical problems. And again, I was trying to help them get out of crisis, get out of friction in their life and find ease and find like healing. Always the same theme. So your incarnation cross is the theme and the purpose of your life. If you are not living in your incarnation cross, if you're not moving to the trajectory of your incarnation cross, life will feel very unfulfilling and stagnant. And that's when you start to struggle. That's when you start to be like, I have no purpose. What is my purpose? This is a big part of it, right? So living into your incarnation cross, super important. You'll notice I have a defined G center, which is the center of love and direction. Typically, people with defined Gs have a strong sense of identity and self. They do not doubt who they are. They tend to know who they are pretty much their whole life. I get comments all the time from people who went to high school with me who are like, you're like the same person. Like, you've evolved, but you are essentially the same person. That's very, very true of me. I have a defined ego center, so I definitely have willful energy about me. I've also, I'm the type of person that can give myself a commitment and actually adhere to it. I don't really question my worth. Questioning my worth is not something that I struggle with. Undefined wills typically do. Also with a defined will, though, because I don't have a sacral also, I tend to work to the point of burnout. If you have a defined will, cycles are very important. So you work to rest, work to rest, work to rest. And I also have a defined spleen, which again makes me a couple of things. It gives me a strong immune system naturally, whereas undefined spleens struggle more with consistent access to a strong immune system. It also gives me an ability to know what's healthy and not healthy for me, and also gives me access to consistent intuition. So again, defined centers simply mean that I have consistent access to those centers. Where I'm undefined, I have inconsistent access to those centers. Doesn't mean I don't have those centers, it means I have inconsistent access. So if there is a transit happening where other centers that I don't have naturally filled in are filled in, then I get like a temporary access to that center. If I'm in a penta or in a group of people, some of whom have these definitions that I don't have, I also get a flavor of that energy temporarily, okay? People who you are around really matter because they influence your lack of definition. Okay, so that's what it means when you have definition versus non-definition. Everyone has all 9 centers. Some of us have consistent energy and some of us have inconsistent energy, depending on what's colored in and what isn't. Okay. Let's talk about the emotional theme, because that's something I didn't talk about. Emotional theme. So when a projector is living in alignment to their design, they are experiencing success in their life. Whatever their definition of success is, it's very individual. But whatever that definition is, they are experiencing that when they're living on chart and they're living their design. Whenever a projector is living off chart and not living their design, the default emotion is bitterness, resentment. You will feel so resentful and bitter. You will watch other people doing things that you want to do and be like, why are they having the success that I want? Does that sound familiar? Or you'll be in a relationship and you won't get your way, or maybe you're feeling burnt out but you don't know how to communicate that, so then you start feeling bitter because your partner is doing everything wrong and they should know. Bitterness is a signal, projector, that you need something. A core need is not being met, or a core way of living is not being accessed. And if you're not accessing your alignment, then you are off in the world of bitterness, hardcore. More water time. Okay. Some interesting things to note about my chart. I'm pretty much going to cover what I covered with Angela's last week. My North node and south node. South node being typically the trajectory of your life for the first 30 years of your life. North node being where you're moving toward or where you're evolving towards. So my south node on both design and personality are in the 46, which is the love of body. And what's interesting about that is that I was born with a heart defect that I had to have open heart surgery for when I was 3 days old. So a huge part of my early life was a heavy focus on body, a heavy focus on the medical needs, my body's physical needs for survival. And this is actually a theme that I see with 46s in south nodes. I will often ask them, did you have any medical emergencies or anything wrong with your body when you were younger? Or if they're older, did you struggle with things like eating disorders? Did you struggle with things like loving and appreciating your body? That's also very typical of the 46 in the shadow. The 46 in the exuberance or in the mastery is a love of the body, moving your body. Like for me, later on, I developed a love of fitness and I became a yoga instructor, and I started to learn to appreciate my body. But when I was a lot younger, it was the opposite. It was a lot of self-deprecation with the body. But regardless, the theme is the body. There's a hyper focus on body in the first 30 years of my life. My north node is in the 25, which is the love of spirit. So I'm moving. The trajectory of my life is to move from the love of body, the love of the material, the love of the incarnate to the love of spirit, to the love of all that is, right? To a more elevated experience of my consciousness. That's really my trajectory, to move from also teaching body and working with body. I worked as a massage therapist, as a yoga instructor. I also worked as a fitness coach for 5 years. Moving from that realm to moving into teaching consciousness, teaching alignment, human design, manifestation, all the things that I'm teaching now. I'm literally in the trajectory of my life as I'm leaving my 30s and going into my 40s, which is exactly when we're supposed to be transitioning from the south into the north expression. So that is what that would show you in your chart. I'm driven by leadership and intuition. That's my moon, and that's very, very accurate. My challenges, let's talk about that, because I talked about Saturn for my friend last week. My Saturn is in the 5 in design and the 11 in personality. So what does that tell me? That tells me that one of my greatest challenges with the 5 in Saturn is having steady routines and habits in my life that support me. 100% true. I have ADHD as well. I'm pretty sure I have ASD and I'm on the spectrum. I have to get diagnosed. Pretty sure. And consistency is very difficult for me. I hyper focus and I lose sight of things that need to happen in order to feed myself, meditate regularly. The routine things can be a challenge for me. That's extremely accurate. But when I'm engaging in those things, my life flows so much better. That's like night and day. So your Saturn is your teacher, it's your challenger, it's the thing that shows you if you can turn this over in your chart, you will have so many blessings. Okay? The 11 on my soul purpose, my soul trajectory, is about being a steward of so many ideas. I have the 11 4 times in my chart. I am flooded with ideas. I'm the kind of person that goes to sleep and I have to have a notebook by my bedside because I get ideas at random times. I have a notebook everywhere in my house because I will think of an invention, and then I will think of a course, and then I will think of something for a client of mine, and I will have to message them and be like, I had this idea for you. You should do this, That's one of my strengths as a coach and a mentor, is actually having so many ideas that when you're talking to me about the things you want to do, it immediately pulls from me these ideas to share with you. But as a challenger, what that tells me, and if you have the 11 in that position, is that not every idea that comes to you is for you. A lot of my ideas are not even for me. They're not for me to act on. They're just for me to hold. And so that's really challenging, because when you have that 11, you have this impetus to move forward with everything that comes to you. But that's not necessarily for you always. Sometimes it's for other people and you're just holding the idea. You're just nurturing the idea until the right steward comes along. Right? So that's how it serves me as a challenger, not to act on everything that I imagine, but to sit with it and to really understand that right timing and recognition is very important. again, my strategy. Understanding how to live in my strategy. So those are some of my challenges. My Pluto. Let's talk about Pluto, because Pluto is, you have the same challenge? Yes, so you understand that holding the ideas can be really challenging sometimes. Like, you're just so enamored with your ideas and you just want to like act on all of them, but they're not all meant for you. And so this is where the strategy and the authority comes into play, because the strategy and the authority helps you understand what's yours, what's not yours, what's correct for you, what's incorrect for you. And this is kind of like something that's just dripping in right now, like channel wise. So I'm just going to go ahead and say it because someone needs to hear it who's on this live. We can't change people. We really can't. A person's design is a person's design. Their challenges are their challenges. Their shadowy shit is their shadowy shit. What you can do is understand your design and understand the mastery and the shadow expression of each of your gates and your channels, so that you can become conscious of your behaviors and conscious of your choices, and move to live more in the mastery expression versus the shadow expression of your gates and channels. That's really all that you can do. Okay? You don't have a choice of who you get to be, in essence, in life. That's what Ra was told. There's no choice. This is your design. But you can work with your design by becoming more conscious of your design. So when I do connection charts between two people, it's one of the first things I let them know. You can't change this connection that you have to this person, but you can deeply understand the connection that you have to this person. And then you get to decide whether you want to work with that or not. Either way, it's valid, right? But at least you know what you're working with. At least you know what you're up against, so to speak, when it comes to this relationship. Okay. So Pluto, my Pluto happens to be in 44, which is a splenic gate. So Pluto is, for me, it's the shadowy planet. It's the things that we obsessively kind of turn over and facilitates our transformation in life. And so my Pluto in my astrology is in Scorpio. Which is so fun. As a Scorpio in my 10th house. So I'm no stranger to shadowy, dark, like deep. I'm no stranger to that. That's been a lot of my life, and I bring that out in a lot of people. How can you know your design? You can visit jovianarchive.com or geneticmatrix.com and put in your birth information just like you would astrology chart. It'll give you your type. Like, this is a different type of chart because I use it for professional services. But it'll give you like a free version of the chart with your type, and then you can come back to this profile, and if you go to my link, I'll have a free downloadable for you about your aura type, and I also have a link to your aura basics classes so you can start to learn about your aura. And also my TikTok has like a ton of videos as well. If you want to dive in more deeply, I do foundational readings, and you can read about those on my site as well. So yeah, Pluto is the dark, transformative, shadowy stuff. And for me, it's in the 44. So the 44 is, in the traditional human design, we talk about it. You do need to know time of birth, yes. So if you don't know your time of birth, a lot of people ask me this question often. You can call the city you were born in. The records should be held because they're held pretty much for an extremely long time before they're dismissed. You can also call the county, hospital. There's also, I think the person you can see to find your birth time is called an astrocartographer, if I'm not mistaken. There's a field that does that kind of work. Usually what I do is I kind of ask them, like, do you know if you were born in the morning or in the evening? And typically people know that much, like they'll know depending on what their parents told them. And so what I do is I run a chart every 15 minutes to see how much it varies, because typically the gates don't change, the line expressions change. So at the very least, what I can get for you is your gates. Your gates will be correct for the most part. The lines might be, here or there, but I can at least get the gates, which are the most important part. And what I mean by lines is like You know how that says 6.3? That's a line expression, is the 0.3, whereas the 6 is the actual gate. So the 44, again, as I was saying, it involves fear of the past. So a lot of my shadow work has been being afraid of recreating mistakes I made in my past. Okay. And because I'm a 3-line in my profile as well, and I've made a lot of mistakes, and mistakes are how I learn. You're welcome. Mistakes are how I learn. I do carry with me the weight of a fear of continuing to make mistakes and repeating patterns of my past. That's huge. Overcoming that has actually been one of the most transformational things of my entire life. And that's why it's in my Pluto. In quantum human design, we look at the 44 as the gate of truth, which is very significant because truth is everything for me. I am a seeker of truth. I am obsessed with knowing the truth about everything. I've made a couple of ET videos on here. I'm like, what is the truth about our origin? What is the truth about like everything? I'm just obsessed with it. And it's very true. And a lot of times truths can be unsavory and they can be not pleasant, you know, and so that's part of that Pluto work as well for me, is discovering truths that aren't nice, that aren't necessarily desirable, and working through those. So and I have it that both on my design and my personality side on my chart. The last thing I'll talk about are my channels. So you'll notice here that I have this full line colored in, and then this full line colored in. This one I colored in simply because that's my Chiron, but Chiron doesn't appear on the chart. I have this one and I have this one. So wherever you have two centers connected by a solid line, that's called a channel. And when you have a channel, that's extremely significant, because to me, when I'm looking at a person's chart, the channels are like the main gifts you came to give this earth, this world right now. So in my case, I have the 4426 and I have the 5125. The 4426 is known as a channel of surrender. And it is about supporting my tribe, so my world, in selling them on a vision of progression. It's like the energy of the salesperson that sells you on the vision for progression, sells you on growth in the mastery. In the shadow, it can be someone who wants to sell you on something that's not good for you, right? Like in the shadow side could be like the used car salesman kind of energy. But in the mastery and in my work, it's really about, I want my tribe to progress. And so all of my work comes from helping them understand how to be better than they were before. That's a huge part of that channel. Getting the lessons from the past, the 44, and bringing them into the 26, which is about integrity and living in integrity and coming from a place of integrity and teaching people to live in integrity. Okay. It's my first channel. My second one is the 5125, connecting the ego to the G center. This is known as the channel. This is the channel of initiation. This is the shaman channel, the priestess channel. This is the person who shocks you into a greater sense of loving spirit, a loving source, loving yourself. This is the person who brings you shocking, initiating questions and, you know, information. And as a coach, my questions can sometimes be very shocking to my clients. You know, I'll pinpoint the thing that you need to hear that just shatters that ice inside of you and makes you see the world differently. That's one of my gifts, and it initiates you into a new place. So those two things are what I bring to the world just as an individual, but also as a professional, how I show up in my work in the world. So especially when I see a projector, I'm very mindful of looking at their channels, because the projector channels tell you immediately this is where you will find success, is in living out the expressions of your channels. That's a huge one for them. So another thing to note, just in this projector design, is that the throat does not have any channel connections to a motor, right? So if you see a non-sacral chart and they do have a throat connection to something like emotional solar plexus, direct or indirect through right here, then they can either be a manifesting generator if the sacral is colored in, or they'll just be a manifester if the sacral is not colored in. So that's how you know that my chart is a projector chart. So that's pretty much it for my projector report. Hopefully y'all learned something about me for sure, but also about projectors in general, and you found this insightful. Projectors are such a beautiful design. There's a huge misconception that they are just like a mess, and a lot of projectors really struggle in their life to find their way. Boy, do I know that struggle so well. And I'm just here to tell you, if you're a projector, you are the leaders of the future. It is moving from the manifestor leadership to the projector leadership. Your role in society is important. It is pivotal to the progression of society. It is your responsibility to learn about your design and to really get into alignment with what you came here to do and be. Because you will be leading the future. And if you don't do that, then you will just be lost in the future, and you won't be able to serve your purpose, and you will get to the end of your life feeling like you had no purpose and you didn't find success. So don't sweat it. You're a projector, you're special, your aura is very unique. It is the one with the most authorities of all the designs. It is the most unique, in my opinion, because it is the most complex. And so yes, it can be difficult, but it doesn't have to be. You can find ease and grace in it, okay? So I'm so glad you did learn something. That's awesome. Thank you so much for hanging with me tonight. If you haven't followed me, please do to learn more about your human design. And if you watch any of my videos and have any questions, I answer all of my comments. I'm very adamant about that. And if you do get your downloadable, you will be on my email list. And so you'll get transit emails from me, and you'll get a lot of just insightful live reading replays, stuff like that, you know, announcements if something is available that wasn't available before. So come hang out with us over there as well. Have a great night, guys.